All right, today is September 3rd, 2020. It's Thursday. I got to tell you, it was just one of the most exciting days in trading the NASDAQ 100 futures today. I'm going to scrunch this together a little bit, and you're going to see if we go back to, if I can get it all on there, go back to 9:30 this morning. 9:30 this morning when the regular market session opened. Market opened at, oh, I'm on the wrong chart. There we go. Market opened at 9:30 this morning, regular market session, and the NASDAQ 100 opened at 12,224 and a quarter. We have about 17 minutes left in today's session, but 12,224 and a quarter, and we traded down to a low of 11,658. So we're basically around 600 points down. It's been kind of a wild ride today. We've had a lot of signals that have been presented to us, and we followed the signals, taking every signal today. I generally start at 7 in the morning and track from 7 to 4 Eastern time. And we've had some signals that have given us wins. We've had signals that have given us losses. And we ended up okay today. And when I say okay, you would look at this and go, well, why didn't you just make a killing? Well, it's difficult to ride this cycle when each of these bars has the opportunity to knock you out of the trade by giving you a 20-point stop out. That's generally where we're using our, or we're placing our stop. So we've had bars, individual 5-minute bars that have been huge today. This one in particular, I just happened to randomly select it. 10:45 this morning, the low of that bar was 11,890, and the high of that bar was 11,980. It's a 90-point bar. So when you're in this type of environment, you want to tread cautiously. You want to use a system of signals, which is what the adaptive entry system is, and you want to follow the signals. You can follow all of the signals, which is consensus, momentum, continuation, and trend signals. Or you can choose just trend and continuation or any combination thereof. We have a variety of methods that members of our community trade. Some people just trade the trend signals and the continuation, and others trade all of the signals. So it's been kind of an energizing day to watch NASDAQ sell off as much as it has. Here is our performance tracking for today. So starting at 7 o'clock this morning, our first trade was actually at 7:15. I actually tracked starting at 3 o'clock in the morning, but practically speaking, we're going to take a look at from 7 a.m. Eastern forward. And our last trade of the day was at 3:30. So what's the overall performance? There are two primary categories that we track, and then we translate into our personal trading plan so that we know how that forecasts out for a 12-month income. And then there's another category that we also track because we've recently identified it in comparing all of the different categories, time zones, and signal methods, and we've identified it as the optimum performing category. Now, we're not using that one to project out. We're actually using the category from 7 to 4, where we track trend bias and continuation trades, and we're tracking the category that's from 9:30 to noon, all signals, any one of the trend bias, continuation, consensus, or momentum signals. So we take those performance data and we enter it into our personal trading plan, and that way we're going to have a reasonable idea of what our average performance is. A single day doesn't matter that much to me. What matters to me is what is our overall average since we've been doing this, which is now going on 9 weeks. We're almost through 9 weeks. Tomorrow will be 9 weeks. And then if we forecast out the rest of the 43 weeks remaining in our 12-month forecast based on our current average, then we have a very reasonable projection of what our income could be over a 12-month period. So in the all category, 9:30 to noon, taking all of the signals, we're going to go over to our data entry columns. There's two pieces of information we need to enter. What was our profit or loss? And today we were down 15 points. NASDAQ 100 is $20 a point, so times 20. So we were down 15 points, times 20, $300, and we're trading 3 contracts. So today that category was down $900. Just pausing for a second, it's thinking. And we did 10 trades today between 9:30 and noon at 3 contracts apiece. So there's 30, not 300, there's 30 contracts, and that accounts for expenses that we have for commissions. So today we had a negative day. Here's the most important part of your end of day summary. You're doing 2 things at the end of the day. Is you're plugging in your performance for the day, and you are resetting your forecast for the future. So in this case, our average of our winning days is 27.9. 27.9. Now I've lowered that average a little bit for our go forward forecast. And the reason I've lowered that forecast a little bit is because we've had 13 losing days in 8.8 weeks. The original forecast assumes an average of 1 losing day a week, and we are slightly ahead of that. So that means that my winning days averaging 27.9 is a good number, except that I have slightly fewer winning days than my original forecast. So I'm going to lower my winning days average to 25 points. That means that for the remaining 43 weeks, right now, the forecast is based on winning at the rate of 25 points on my winning days. My losing days are averaging 21.84, and that actually factors in a excess number of losing days beyond the forecast. That's factored in that calculation. We're going to adjust this calculation also to factor that in. So the losing day average is 21.84, so I want to adjust my average going forward for the forecast to 21.84. I'm going to make it 21.80. I usually just round off to the closest whole, so 21.80. So I'm planning on winning on my winning days 25 points, and I'm planning on losing at the rate of 21.8 points on my losing days, and that takes into account the rate of losing days. Okay, so we've adjusted. So we start with a forecast that's based on I'm going to win on an average 4 days a week, and I'm going to lose on an average 1 day a week. And I think we actually started our forecast going forward to win at the rate of 30 points a day and to lose at the rate of 15 points a day. But that's what this is all about, is you're building a forecast and then you adjust it based on your actual performance. The 2 most important things you can do every day are trade and achieve whatever positive performance you can. And the second most important thing is to update your personal trading plan so that you know where you stand in terms of your actual run rate and going forward what that drives for a future income. If we max out our contracts at no more than 3 contracts for the remaining 43 weeks of the 12-month plan, then our income could potentially be $235,000. Now that income has declined a little bit. That projected income has declined a little bit in the last couple of weeks as our rate of losing days has increased slightly. Not significantly, but it's increased slightly, and we need to take that into account. This is like having any other small business. and perhaps you lost a few more clients than you had planned, or you had a few more expenses than you had planned. It doesn't mean you're not going to make money. It just means you need to have a realistic forecast going forward that's actually based on what's happening. Now, what if you looked at this and go, all right, well, I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping that I would be able to make more than that. Here's your variable right here. Your variable is we're capping out at 3 contracts. We can change that and we can cap out at 4 contracts. We could increase by 1 contract. And all of a sudden, your full 12-month income forecast increases. The only reason that you would do that is because you feel comfortable trading a maximum of 4 contracts, more than 3. And that's okay, because there's another limiter on that 4 contract max, and that is whatever the current balance of your account is, we won't allow more than 10% of the balance of the account to be allocated to contracts, and each contract requires $500 of margin. So if you need $500 of margin on 4 contracts, you need $2,000 of margin. Well, you have to have $20,000 in the account in order to be able to put on 4 contracts. And you can change that to whatever you want. You can change it to 5%, 7%, 20%. We like it at 10. I think that's a very conservative number. So I'm going to just complete this while we're doing this here. Oops. Once we've completed a day, in the contract override column, I put in whatever the contracts were that we traded that day, so that when I'm adjusting this, it will only apply, when I'm adjusting the max contracts, it will only apply to future days, weeks, and months. It will not go back and try to recalculate anything that's already behind us. We're not going to change history, but we might want to adjust going forward. So given that 3 contracts gives us an income over a 12-month period based on the current run rates of $235,403, well, 4 contracts would increase that potentially to $303,000, or 5 contracts would increase it to $370,000 potentially. And of course, it's always limited by no more than 10% of the balance of the account. So I'm going to leave it at 3. I think that 3 is a very reasonable and conservative number when combined with no more than 10% of the balance of the account. I think that a 25-point profit run rate is reasonable, and a 21.8 point losing run rate is reasonable, because this whole project started with $5,000 and potentially gets us to $235,403 with no more than 3 contracts. I like those numbers right there. All right, so the other category that we track, as I mentioned, is the category where we're trading trend, bias entries, and continuation entries only. We're not taking consensus, and we're not taking momentum signals. And in that category, we actually had 0 points today. At one point, we were up 40 points today. We had some pretty sizable movements within some bars, so we entered. We limit our exposure to any trade to a maximum of 20 points of loss. We had some trades where we got stopped out at 20 points of loss, and then we recovered and we made back some points, and then we gave back some points. It was really a give and take day. So to me, having no points today is not an issue. It's a win in my book, because on a day like today, you could have just gotten slammed if you didn't use proper stop techniques and you weren't locking in for profits. And today is just a good example of, I think, good management. We didn't end up with net profits. In fact, when we factor in commissions, which was 18 trades at 3 contracts per trade, so 54 contracts, we end up with a small loss for the day, $216. And again, I want to emphasize, I'm not really concerned about any individual day. I would say the same thing if we made, 100 points today, positive. I'm not really enamored with a big win. I'm not really concerned about a bigger loss on an individual day. I'm more interested in, what does the overall picture look like? Our average winning days are winning at 34.5 points a day, and we basically are planning right there, 34, I'm going to adjust that just slightly, 34.5 points per day going forward. Our average losing day, we are right on pace right now, right on plan. We have 8 losing days, and today was a small losing day, but it classifies as a losing day. We have 8 losing days in almost 9 weeks. Tomorrow will be 9 weeks. So we are really right on plan, slightly favorable to plan. And so our average losing day is 18.41 points. So I'm going to change that to 18.41. And then based on 3 contracts, that gives us a projected 12-month income of $368,000. Starting with $5,000, that can be achieved by understanding how to trade the adaptive entry system, knowing when to get into trades, when to get out of trades. We help with that in the live trading room, and also being consistent about entering your data just like any other financial document you would manage in a small business or in your personal finances, to understand where do we expect to be in a 12-month period. We now have almost 9 weeks behind us since we've been profiling this in the live trading room, 43 weeks to go in a 52-week year, and we really are on pace right now with no guarantee. We're on pace of being at an income of just under $368,000. That number could change. It could be higher or lower, and it will all be driven by what are our actual performance numbers, our actual run rates, and then using those run rates to project forward so that we are using a realistic forecast for the balance of the 52-week year. Again, you can play around with the number of contracts. If for some reason you think $368,000 isn't sufficient, having started with $5,000, you can make it 5 contracts. 5 contracts at $500 per contract for margin to open a trade is $2,500. Because there's a 10% limiter, you need $25,000 in the account in order to open 5 contracts. So you can be assured that you will never get to 5 contracts until that 10% of the balance qualifier is met. And again, I'm going to complete this here. This is just locking in to make sure that if I'm adjusting the number of contracts, total number of contracts, higher or lower, that it will not affect the overall averages that are behind us. So now if I adjusted that to 5 contracts, well, you could have possibly a $500,000 income. That's pretty reasonable income, I would think, for anybody. And that's simply based on forecasting at our exact average run rates through 9 weeks. All right, so once again, today was a very interesting day. Had lots of opportunities to take trades today. We are still focused on looking at the optimum category. The 2 categories that we just profiled, the 9:30 to noon and the 7 to 4, trend bias and continuation only, those 2 categories are ranked, tied actually, for second most optimum combination of negative days, win-loss ratio, and average point production. The number 1 category is this one right here, that is from 7 to 4, trading all signals, looking for 10 points of profit or possibly locking in 5. And it's averaging 75.25 points a day. We only had 3 losing days out of 59 days. That's a pretty rock solid number, in my opinion. And overall, on a position by position basis, we have a 72.6% win rate. And so it ranks number 1 in terms of point production, it ranks number 1 in terms of negative days, and it ranks number 4 in terms of win-loss ratio. But you can see here that we're very, very close, neck and neck, within 1 to 2 percentage points on win-loss ratio. So it's a very strong category, and that's simply from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. if you choose to do that, trading all of the signals, the trend bias, the continuation, and the consensus and momentum signals. So we're pretty excited about the data that we're collecting. It gives us a tremendous amount of confidence in understanding where to focus our attention. And it's really these three categories primarily that we are focusing our attention. Now, there is one other category that's actually in a three-way tie for second place. We don't talk a lot about it, but people have asked 7 a.m. to noon if you want to trade less. Looking for 10 points, all signals. That's a pretty reasonable second most optimum category. There's actually a three-way tie for second. 42 and 0.72 points. That's a pretty solid number right there too. 7 losing days. So the most optimum category, if I look at the daily summary, is right here. We actually finished with 32.25 points today. That's very reasonable. Now that's trading from 7 to 4. We actually cut it off at 3:30. We don't take any more trades after 3:30, but if we are in a trade, we'll carry it right up to 4, and if we've not resolved the trade by then, we flatten it at 4 o'clock. All right, so that's today's performance. It's a pretty exciting day today. I mean, we're down 600 plus points on the NASDAQ, and I expect that we're going to see some sort of a retracement in the coming days, but we'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, we don't carry anything overnight. We're just waiting for the next market day to open, and we'll take a look at what the signals bring us at that time. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for those of you who are in the live trading room for participating and being here with us. Just really appreciate you being part of our community.